Scooch on up here. All right. Well, hello, you guys. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. Let me tell you guys what this show is about. This is the show where we like to have those tough conversations, all in the name of education. We like to talk about education, employment, mental health. We, we've had conversations about being a child of divorce, financial literacy. We've done a multitude of topics on disabilities. We like to take those things that we don't really talk about, or there's things that we always wanted to know about. Either we keep it to ourselves or we kind of keep it in a small circle of friends. Well, this is the show where we like to take all that and put it all in your face. So, this is a show where we like to get hot and steamy, all in the name of education, of course. And today is no different. I am excited about, I know I sound exhausted, but I really am. I really am excited about today. I am excited because not only do we have a repeat topic, but we have a repeat guest. So let me remind you, rather, let me tell you what the topic is today. The topic today is double standards. So we are bringing it back. It is double standards part 2. And my returning guest is Jonisha Jones. We had an awesome conversation last time. We actually went overtime. We just decided we're just going to bring it back and continue that discussion. So I am, Jonisha is coming back to the hot seat, and I am excited that she is back. And I think she's the first guest that is a personal friend of mine. Everyone else I met on the internet. No, she's actually she's the first one I knew for like 10 plus years. So, yeah. So, let's me tell you, I'm all over the place today. I'm sorry, guys. I really am exhausted. But let's get right to it. So, I'm just going to remind you about who Jonisha is. So, who is Jonisha Jones? Let me tell you who she is. So, Jonisha Jones is a native New Yorker currently living in the South. She started a podcast called Another Damn Podcast, right? Which I'll tell you about later. She started a podcast as a way to discuss topics that were important to her. She enjoys photography, astrology, and travel. Short and sweet. All right, so let's bring her to the stage. Hey, Jonisha, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome back to Hot Topics. We had an interesting discussion last time.
We
We were
did.
talking about double standards and how, particularly in the arena of sex and relationships and that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, when women do one thing, it's considered one thing, but then when men do the same thing, it's the exact opposite to that.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. So let's see what we could pull out today. So I just happened to look up the definition of a double standard, and according to the Googler, it says a rule or principle which is unfairly applied in different ways to different people or groups. All right. So what do you think of that definition?
I think that kind of speaks to basically what we were talking about last week. Last time on the show about just the double standards between women. I think we mostly focused on like the sexual aspect of it, where if a woman has a lot of partners, she's seen as a certain type of way. But if men don't have enough partners, they're seen as a certain they're lacking. basically in either women that want them, or people question their sexuality, or people question their ability to please women because their numbers are so low. So we just kind of find that difference, as opposed to if it's a woman has less partners, then she's more appealing to be with, she's more ideal to be with, whereas a man, a lot of women wouldn't want a man like that. So yeah, I think that definition fits perfectly to kind of like everything we talked about last time. Yeah, I never looked it up before, so it makes sense.
Hey, listen, sometimes you got to get the literal definition.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
where do you think that comes from? That it is the fact that there's this expectation that women are supposed to be they're supposed to have minimal partners. They're supposed to, minimal sexual partners.
mm-hmm,
Um, they're supposed to conceal their sexuality.
mm-hmm.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think that comes from men more so. I think that comes from a standard that maybe back in the in the ages, a lot of men came up with, especially, I mean, just the idea of having a child under wedlock, right? Not being married, having a child and not being married. That child was considered a bastard. That child was considered, you know, and that woman, any woman who wasn't a virgin, who lost her virginity before getting married, wasn't someone that anyone wanted. You know, excuse me. Even if she was just raped, unfortunately for her, it wasn't her choice to lose her virginity. But if it got out that she had sex in any manner, um, all of a sudden she was kind of scorned in a sense. So I think that's what kind of started it. And I give women the accountability as well as upholding those beliefs, because there are women out there who have judged other women for their sexual preferences and things that they have done sexually. But I think maybe that's just kind of like a form of Stockholm syndrome in a sense, right? Because you're some women want to cater to a man so much that they'll uphold even those views for them. The whole idea of virginity and staying clean and pure. Some women will uphold those views for the sake of seeming more appealing to men. So I think it's just kind of an unfortunate string of things that just kind of continued on over the years.
So it makes me think about. I wonder if there's like a hidden um, religious aspect to it. Um, in that, particularly in Christianity, where a woman is supposed to stick to one man. Usually, like the parents will usually give their daughter off to someone else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, as opposed to the daughter having a free choice.
Right.
Um, so I'm wondering if you think there's a underlying religious aspects to all of this.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it could be argued. I don't think it's the only thing, but I think that it could be argued that it's a religious thing. I mean, like you said, back in the day, women would be kind of sold in a sense. And I don't think that idea comes from Christian specific countries like India. um Women, they get, like, I think it's called like a dowry, right? I don't know if that's just India, but it's kind of like, the you want to have your child go to be with the wealthiest family or the wealthiest man to kind of bring honor to your family. So I don't think it's just a Christian thing. I think, but I definitely do think that religion, you said religious, not Christian, but religion, I think religion does can play a role, but I guess it just depends on the. I think it depends on the specific type of religion. So, like Christianity, man and woman, husband and wife, that kind of one and one thing. And I don't. I think that a lot of countries that participated in, polygamous relationships, I think once we maybe once they kind of became Christian societies, they probably had to let go of those views on life, as opposed, to where men could be with multiple women. And we only, when we look at polygamy, we only see where it's one bed with a bunch of women, a bunch of wives. I think it's still kind of taboo to see one woman with multiple men, but it does happen. So, yeah, I think it can be argued that religion plays a role, but I think it just depends on the religion in question.
Yeah, like even in with I think in any religion, the woman still is subservient to the man. So even with like polygamy, where it's common for one man to have multiple wives, there's still the one man, the one dominant man, as opposed to one woman having multiple husbands,
Right. Right.
so it's this, I mean, I think there's that hidden, Christian aspect about, the man is the head of the household, the dominant figure. And I think even in the Old Testament, if a woman were to, if if she had sex outside the marriage, she was stoned to death, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, I'm not sure what the punishment is for men. No, I think men, like, they had to go to they were a whole other town. They were excommunicated, I think. But women, it's in the Old Testament, I think, that they was actually stoned to death. Um, so there I there's this favoritism toward men, I
Yeah.
think. I think in terms of religion, and even in terms of double standards
Right.
that, and in a way still carry into today, but in some ways that it is changing.
Right. Right.
What are your
I don't know.
thoughts on
I don't think it's. I mean, I don't think it's changing. In terms of the man being the dominant one, I don't think that idea is changing so much. I just think maybe people are starting to take notice of it, and there's more conversations happening like this. There's a lot of more podcasts coming out. I know, we had the feminist movement, but I think that even that feminism in itself um, can be kind of toxic in a sense because the reason I say that is because Dave Chappelle gave the example of the fact that, women exclude men out of feminism when, I think they definitely need to be involved. So, not in a dominant sense, but just in a sense of them leading the way and kind of, since they, in a sense, if we're talking about just the past, like I said, that men kind of created the standard of what a clean woman is and how sexual a woman can be. I think it'll be up to them to also continue to dismantle those thought processes, to where they need to also be involved in feminism, and we need to change the idea of feminism being just a woman thing when it's supposed to be someone who believes, women are all equal or everyone is equal in a sense, if we look at the definition of that. So I think that more people are starting to question why, why we have these standards, why we're still upholding these standards. We're starting to question and discuss, just the kind of damage that these standards are doing in a society that's becoming a little bit more judgmental because we have the access to be more judgmental to people. We have more people's information now. My boyfriend and I were just watching an episode. I don't remember the name of the show. Uh, it's on Netflix. It's a documentary about a man who, I think his name is Hunter Moore, who created revenge porn, which is basically, taking people's pictures, their sexual pictures that they in their, like they take privately on their phone. In some cases, it was something that was sent to someone else, but in other cases, it was, a provocative picture they may have had it on their phone. And the issue became that he created a site called Is Anyone Up, where a lot of these pictures were being uploaded, some by submission, like me submitting my own picture. Other cases, it would be my ex-boyfriend submitting my picture because he's hurt that we broke up or I cheated on him or whatever the case may be. And in other instances, it came out that this guy was hacking people's personal accounts, their email accounts. And let's say, this happened around 2009, 2010. So that's when we first started to really that's when like the digital age started to really explode, and people, were starting to use the internet more and find more ways. Before, if you wanted to save, because I remember I've done that before, like if I wanted to save a picture or save storage in my phone, I would email the pictures of myself that I wanted to keep. I would email it because I would have my email, which holds so much more bigger storage. I would send it there. So I think that's what was happening to people. And in this sense, on this site, now I'm not going to say men weren't victims too. Men and women were victims of having their pictures posted, but it was definitely a woman's thing, right? It was definitely something that catered to people humiliating women and exploiting their photos. And we saw a huge rise in people not caring about the effects that it had on these women. A lot of people would go on the site begging him to take the pictures down, and he would completely ignore them, or he would have them do something even more humiliating sexually, especially if it was a woman, sexually, in order to get them to think he's going to take their pictures down, but he didn't. So again, I think that's where we kind of look into the fact that we need kind of, more men involved in changing the narrative and helping with the discussion on these double standards, because they kind of, it could be argued that they created these standards, so we need the help in kind of switching it.
Yeah, that's a lot of information that you put there, and I think they definitely should be involved in that. And I think also we we need to, I guess, teach men and also teach young boys about in terms of not being how do I phrase it, like with with in terms of revenge porn. It's sort of, I think there's laws now against revenge porn, but that had to be advocated for.
Right.
And it's sort of this hidden expectation, like, oh, it's men pursuing their sexual nature,
Mm-hmm.
so, or you're, why is the woman, like, why are the woman like, why are you complaining about it? And even when women do that, they're the ones that are shamed, saying
Right.
like, well, why did you send them the picture of yourself? Why did you do that? Why did you upload that picture? Why did you do this? And there seems to be this demonization of, of, again, of female sexuality. And that why did you put it, why did you put yourself out there? You shouldn't have done that. So it seems to be this hidden message of women have to be conserved and docile, and they have to be constrained, they have
Right.
to be reeled in, you know as opposed to men, that they're allowed to be loose
Right.
and loose and goose, and kind of wilding out. Um, but I do agree that men should be more involved in advocating for women's issues with that, and because it also reflects poorly on men.
Right.
And well, yes, but I think what I'm trying to say is it's more of a backlash against men, in that the fact that if you know if a woman were to do that, if a woman were, if, let's say, your boyfriend, he sent you a dick pic, and you were angry at him, and you decided to post it on a website, and everyone saw it, and and then if a man were, it would actually it would be difficult for the boyfriend to go to a police and say, "Hey, my a picture of my penis is it's on a Russian website. And I want to take that down."
Right.
How quickly would um, police respond to that?
Right.
And I think, and even nowadays, I think police are more likely to respond to a woman um, being the victim of revenge porn as opposed to men.
Right.
So I think it's a backlash in that if the same thing were if men were ever to be victims,
Hmm.
then it would take longer for the authorities to respond. And there's that hidden message of, well, you're supposed to be a sexual creature, you're supposed to be lucid.
Hmm.
Why are you worried about this?
Right.
And then men are seen as weak, and there's even that fear of homosexuality. Like, why are you a fag? Are you a fruit? Like, why do you care about that? So I think in terms of advocating for women's rights and treatment towards women, men should also be involved with that, because it's actually a backlash against them when the same thing
Right.
happens to them.
Right. I agree. Yeah, no, I agree with everything that you said, especially the question on sexuality, because that I think that's also like a double standard as well. Just between the difference of women and men. I mean, we wouldn't question a woman's sexuality if she, didn't have a lot of sexual partners. There would be no question of if she liked men or not, as opposed to women. Yeah, they'd definitely question. I mean, men, they'd question what his sexuality is. So yeah, that's true.
So what can we do? What do you think the answer is? I know the question's always, so what's the answer? What's the solution? So what do you think the answer is?
I'm honestly not sure. I know that we have a lot of people do podcasts like this. I mean, I had a my on my podcast, I touch on it on the very first episode, but I honestly don't know what can be done besides conversations. I don't know if maybe just continued conversation can kind of like help with the deprogramming of our minds when it comes to that. I mean, obviously, we're thinking about it. People are talking about it. Like I said, there's a bunch of podcasts, and maybe even books. Studies. I'm pretty sure there's a lot that's being put into really answering this question, and a lot, or a question that's kind of encompassing what's going on right now. But I honestly, I'm not sure, besides maybe, you know, starting in the household. I mean, a lot of our characteristics are learned, kind of like a nurture kind of thing. Nature plays a role, and there have been studies about about the fact that personality can be seen in genes. So unfortunately, if there's just a history in your family, if it's true that personality is within our genes, then if you have a history of just family men or women who have like a social construct or a social idea in terms of how women and men should be, then maybe it's just something that's in you, unfortunately. But if we're talking about a nurturing point of view, and in the household, I have kids, I have a son and a daughter, so it would most likely just start with the household and what you decide to talk to your kids about, and what you decide to teach them about gender roles, and just the topic of, you know not what our roles are in a gender, because I know right now even that's a topic of controversy, a gender, and people not wanting to identify as a him or her, but wanting to identify as a they or them. I know that can get tricky, but if you're living in a household where you are teaching the value, not the value, but you're pushing your kids to understand, kind of continue that idea, that context of, a female is a her and a male is a him, and male has this part, female has this part, whatever your beliefs are. um it'll just be important to kind of teach our kids that shaming people for anything that they do, no matter their gender, is wrong, and that we need to kind of not to say mind our business, but learn to be more empathetic to people. People make mistakes, and not even mistakes. People have, needs and things that they like to do that shouldn't be questioned. So if there's a woman out there that likes to have sex, you know, it shouldn't come down to her being a bad person, right? Unfortunately, we find out teachers, just kind of bringing it back to, I guess, an educational standpoint, if a teacher was found out to be a porn star or a stripper outside of school, she would be fired, right? Unfortunately, because no one wants a stripper teaching their kids, even though she's, has her master's degree, she's educated. All of a sudden now she's diminished because of her occupation that has nothing to do with school, and who knows how people even found out about it, right? So I guess that's where minding our business would come into a play. Now, if she was molesting children, then of course, but I'm just using the stripper as an example. So I think it would just more so be learning how to kind of start off in the household and teach, and maybe even programs in the school. But I don't know at what age that would start. I know developmentally in terms of the brain and everything with kids, you really have to hit certain things at certain age ranges for it to stick later. And I know that also brings up the topic of like sex education, people not wanting their kids to learn about sex so early. So there's like a bunch of things that can be done. I think simply talking about it could help, but I'm not really sure. Yeah, I anyone can kind of take it and run with it anywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it starts with conversations about. Um, I think the first step is awareness. Definitely being aware of the double standard, and and as you were talking about like teachers, like a thought came to my mind about it's teachers sleeping with their students. If
Right.
if the teacher, okay, if if the teacher were male, he would be getting, you know, wait, no, I'm flipping that backwards. So in the student perspective, if it was a male student sleeping with the female teacher,
Mm-hmm.
the male student would be getting praises and high fives,
Right.
but then the female teacher would be seen as a slut, and she would be
Right.
demonized. And even if we were to flip that, um, if the student were a female and the teacher were male, the 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 male teacher would be, they would call for his persecution. The male teacher would be
Mm-hmm.
persecuted, and then the girl would. I think I'm flipping it backwards. Yeah. But then like the girl would be the female student. She would be seen as a victim.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is like there's the double standard about um men pursuing their sexual nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So even with the teacher student relationship, which is abuse, and regardless,
Mm-hmm.
it's having the conversation about it's abuse regardless. So whether the the students, whether it's male or female, they are still victims. And I think we have to acknowledge that men can be victims. I think that is the
Right.
first step. So saying that men can be victims, boys can be victims.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, men don't have to be sexual pariahs, you know. So I think it's starting there, and starting with um, teaching men, that you don't have to, uh, you know, be so macho. It's okay. It's okay to be sensitive. You don't have to be macho. You don't have to be. You don't have to have 20 and 30, 40 girlfriends. You don't have to have all these sexual partners. But I think it starts with men and boys, and how we and what we teach them. What do you think of that?
I think that too. Yeah, I had when I mentioned earlier about just men are the ones that kind of created the idea of what a clean woman is. I know sometimes even women who try to kind of stick to being with one man are sometimes in a double standard kind of way. You know, it's like you can't win in any situation. You know, if a woman's too loose, then she's a hoe. But if she's very like particular about how many partners she wants to be with, you know, some people would call her a prude. And when I looked up the definition of prude, it said that it's an old French meaning an old French word meaning honorable woman, and that's a person who's described for being concerned with decorum or you know, basically like relating to sexuality. So they're not like sexual and stuff like that. But I know prude now to be of like a demeaning kind of word, like, oh, she's a prude, she's not trying to have sex with a bunch of people. So I see that kind of being a switch, and I think that's also a men, like men started that as well. So I think it is a good conversation to have with men, but I just also think that I guess just because I've seen it in my experience, a lot of women pushing each other down. But I would say that if we do get men involved in the conversation, you know, a lot of things that women do are for men. So I think that getting them involved, if they're changing the way they're acting towards women who are more sexual or women who are prudish, I think that if they change, then, you know, it'll kind of maybe help with changing the narrative. But I think it does start with women only because, you know, women raise the children in a sense, and that may be sexist and may not. I mean, we've been seeing changes with men staying home with kids now too, but I think in normally it's the woman raising a child, so it'd be the woman to kind of teach both children, you know, to kind of change this narrative.
Yeah, yeah. So I was one. So I'm just wondering, as you're talking, you said you have a son and a daughter. What what are your what are your morals when it comes to? I know they're pretty young. I know you're afraid to think about it, but you know that day will come soon. You know, what are your morals about, you know, sexuality and um, you know, victimization, victimhood? What are your morals when it comes to your own kids?
I don't have any morals per se, because I think then that would kind of I think I would have to not well, not that I don't have morals, but I don't have anything in particular that I've been teaching them for the most part. I mean, you know, more so just kind of talking to them about, you know, just letting them know openly that you know, whatever in terms of whatever they do with their sexual preferences or whatever they decide to do, that I'll support them in that. But in terms of like, you know, I haven't had those conversations with my son or my daughter about like rape and, you know, victim shaming and, you know, and stuff like that. We haven't gotten that deep into things. I mean, like you said, it is coming. My daughter started middle school, but uh I guess that's a good question. So I guess it's something that I'm gonna have to look into myself to kind of see which direction I can take that or how I want to approach that when the time comes for me to have those type of conversations with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of even about dating, you know, is it, you know, what are your rules on dating?
Yeah, that don't have any rules on dating. I haven't even thought about that. I mean, because even that's kind of a rabbit hole in a sense, because the thought process would be that I would tell my son, you know, he has to take a girl on a date, he has to open the doors for her, he has to pay for everything, he has to do this and that. And then, you know, the expectation is I'd be teaching my daughter that, you know, the man is supposed to pay for everything and, you know, spend, and the more money he spends on her, that means he likes her. But I think those, even those values and morals are detrimental to people and their double standards, because we have found that a lot of women, you know, sometimes they go on dates they don't even like, on dates with men they don't like, just for the sake of having a free meal or getting money out of the guy, you know. So, and I don't want that. I don't want my daughter doing that to anyone, and I wouldn't want that happening to my son. So, I think, yeah, I think that's something that I'd be changing in terms of dating in my household,
Hmm.
or how to show the person you like them.
Interesting, interesting.
Hmm.
So it's sort of instinctual in a way. Like, you know, you would teach your son, hey, you know, open the door for her, pull out the chair, as opposed to your daughter. It's like, you know, the guy is supposed to do that, and it's sort of like, wait, do I really want my daughter learning that? You
Right.
know, and what what does that mean for her, that she has to accept that, you know, she has to accept that, and what does that mean, you know?
Right.
So it's I know it's early, but you know, it's something to think about, and it's even interesting the fact that you have to think about it, and like, wait, I'm telling my daughter one thing, but then I'm telling my son something else.
Right. Right.
All right, so all right. All right, so I think we got it. Let's start to wind things down. So do you have any final words of wisdom that you would like to share?
No, I just think that, like I said, with this conversation that we had, and just the conversation that I've had with other people, and podcasts that I've heard too, like I said, I think it's something that we need to continuously just talk about with our kids. And I know that the talk is going to be affected based on your own cultural beliefs and cultural values and your views. So of course, if you're coming from a Christian household and you believe that male and female, and that the male should be courting the woman, of course you're going to be teaching your sons that they are going to have to be the ones to pay all the bills, and uh pay for these dates, and basically be financially responsible, or showing themselves to be financially secure, which will attract women to you. And I'm not saying that's just a Christian value, but if that's something that you're going to be teaching your kids, or also teaching your daughter to expect, to be prudish, and to not have a lot of sexual partners, and be with just one man, and only that men are supposed to be treating you this way, and or whatever the case may be. If you set expectations on other people for your child or for you, you just have to think about, especially if you're telling this to your child, the kind of effect it can have them in the long run, right? Because a lot of men sometimes don't get in relationships, or hold off on relationships, because they don't have a lot of money, they don't have a lot of sexual powers, they're lacking in things that their parents and society are telling them that they're supposed to have. Just like women, they don't feel good enough to be in certain relationships or be in certain situations with people, because society is telling them that they've had too many partners, or that they're too prudish, or that they're not meeting the standard of what society says that they're supposed to meet. So that we get that kind of expectation of women when it comes to relationships or just life, and we have that expectation of men that's being beat into us by family and friends, society. So I just urge people to just think about those things when they're setting those expectations, and kind of projecting their own, because it's all projections of our own things, or things that were passed down to us from family, and again, cultural values, religion. So I think the best way is to really think about that, and start to kind of break away from those thought processes long enough for you to see a more objective viewpoint, and see how it can affect your children in the long run, if that kind of stuff matters to you, or if that's something you think you could look at. Because I'm pretty sure people can argue that, well, making a female think about being prudish or whatever will save her from ending up on someone's website, or save her from being with a bunch of men. But if that's not how she is internally, if her desires are to be sexual, now we're hindering her from being sexual. And who her lack of sexuality benefits who, um if not just stopping people from talking about her. So that's my words of wisdom.
Fabulous, fabulous words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Donisha. All right, so Promo time. All right, you guys. So Jonisha Jones, she don't got much. She's on Instagram and she's on TikTok. So check her out on Instagram at Jojo underscore San Diego 369. She is also on TikTok at supernova underscore Jones 39. So please go over to those accounts and follow her. If you need to reach out to her, those are the ways you can reach out to her. So I encourage you to follow her on Instagram and follow her on TikTok. If you were inspired by the words that she said today, I encourage you to reach out to her on TikTok again at supernova, well Nova Nova underscore Jones 39. Instagram is at Jojo underscore San Diego 369, all of which will be in the description. So, in case you miss it, don't worry, the information will be in the description. And I also want to take a moment to shout out her podcast. She has this podcast called Scoff, in parentheses, another damn podcast. The link is, um, well, there's a long link on the screen for the viewers, but it's pretty much wherever there are podcasts. So I really shouldn't have that link up there, but that's okay. But the podcast is called Scoff, another damn podcast. It is on Anchor, Spotify, and wherever else there are podcasts, it is there. So definitely listen to her podcast. Jonisha, can you tell us briefly what your podcast is about?
So, yeah, my podcast is just me basically picking a topic. Right now, I'm doing a series on "Are we still protecting Black women?" where I just take a Black woman in social media that I feel has been scrutinized by her peers. So mostly other Black people, but just peers in general. And I just ask same thing that I kind of asked of us to do today is kind of have some perspective on why we're treating them that way, and how we can kind of expand our minds to how we're treating people that we say we're protecting.
All right. That sounds fabulous. That's fire, you guys. So make sure you listen to that podcast. It is called Scoff, another damn podcast. If you're viewing this on the screen, I put up the link. I just realized it's a lot of letters, but basically, it is wherever there are podcasts. Check out her podcast and follow her. Follow her on every platform she's in. All right. So, Janisha, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Let me put you backstage now. And let me put up my contact information. There it is. All right. So, we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please check out our other episodes and don't forget to follow and subscribe, whatever platform you are watching or listening this show. Please follow and subscribe and check out our other episodes. And while you're at it, please let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section or in the comment thread. I, Gabrielle, would appreciate your feedback. And as a reminder, this podcast is a production of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if you would like to learn more about our company, what we're about, the services that we have to offer, I will tell you our website. It is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And we are all over that social media as well. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what else? WhatsApp, Eventbrite, YouTube. So definitely check us out all over our social media and please follow and subscribe there as well. And I do want to shout out that we have a coupon going on right now that if you are looking for a tutor and you reach out to us and you let us know that you heard about us from Hot Topics, we will give you 15% off 6 hours of tutoring. I'm going to repeat that again. When you reach out to us looking for a tutor, whether for yourself or for your child, and you put down that you heard about us from Hot Topics, boom, 15% off 6 hours of tutoring. So that should motivate you to seek our tutoring services. And lastly, I want to encourage you to sign up for our email list and our texting list. You will receive exclusive offers, promotions, announcements, the whole 9 yards, as they say. So I encourage you to sign up for our email list and our texting list. That information is on the screen right now for those of you watching this on video. But if you're listening on audio, that information is in the description. All right, so now I'm going to share this final message before we close.
Hey there, have you heard of us? We're a small team of tutors here at A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. We believe that education and information should be accessible to everyone, regardless of income, race, or creed. We're dedicated to making this happen, but we need your help. Please consider making a donation to our company. No amount is too small. Your donation will allow us tutors to remain employed, offer free and low-cost services, put on productions like this podcast, and reach out to families nationwide. With your help, we can tackle the academic challenges of our students and the emotional, mental, and behavioral changes that result from these challenges. As a bonus, we can improve our communities in the process. Support us today. Send your donation by Cash App to $ASATS 2013, by PayPal or Venmo to @ASATS 2013, or by Zelle to success@astepAheadTutoringServices.com. For our Facebook Live viewers, you can also send us a star. Your support means a lot to us. Please note, we're a for-profit company. We're not a charity. Your donation may not be tax deductible. Please consult a tax professional.
All right, you guys, and that is it for the show. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. All right, that's it, you guys. Now I am signing off. Bye.